So, on the day of my breakdown, with every tear that was shed, more pain was released. And it felt like all the masks that I had created in my life to that point were stripped away. And in time, I remember wondering, well, if that's not me, then who am I? Hi, I'm Mel from EnRichmbs, where you can follow my journey to enrich mind, body and spirit. And in today's video, I'm going to go into more detail of the actual trauma that I experienced. Now, this is quite a big decision for me because I am such a private person, but I feel that this is important because this trauma, this event and everything that followed, the healing that followed, is the very reason for all the incredible things that happened to me afterwards. It's the reason EnRichmbs was born. And I started by creating the Facebook page so that I could share some of these incredible things that followed on after this event. And just to let you know, if you missed my previous video, I am going to put the link below, and in that I do give an overview of what EnRichmbs is about and the different pages that I have created, which are about these new abilities and these experiences. So there's a page for my intuitive art, for my visions, for my meditations that I created since then, for the poetry that arose in me since then. I have a number of pages. I will put all the links below. So please do refer to that video. Watch that video first if you would like to. And you can see all the links to my Facebook pages. But this is very important today because this gives more about the story behind those posts. And I just want to, first of all, say I would like you all to just pause and take a moment to decide whether or not you actually want to watch this video. If you feel that it may trigger sad events for you, for yourself, then please do think carefully before you watch more of this video. And if that is the case and you go ahead, please be ready to seek whatever support systems help you. Okay, but if you would like to continue, thank you and welcome, and here goes. Okay, so to give you a bit of background, as a child I was a very quiet child, shy child, known as Smiley Mels. I was very smiley, eager to please. I wanted to make others happy. I wanted to fix things if things weren't right. All good things, yes, all good things, very nice. However, only nice and good as long as it's not to any cost to oneself. Okay, that's when it can become a problem. Giving is wonderful, but when it's not in your best interest, on, and you're putting others before yourself, or situations that you're dealing with that aren't all yours, and it's ongoing, it can create ongoing stress and so on. And also I've said to you that I'm very private, so I didn't share. I didn't let all these feelings out. I tended to keep things to myself, and I wonder really whether many people actually saw me not smiling. It was probably quite rare. They might see me look a bit less smiley or not happy, maybe sad, but probably most people did not realise when there was actually something really wrong, because I would go out there and fix it. I would smile and keep going and carrying on and so on. There's more to it, but that's my impression of myself on self-reflection, that I wasn't a person who naturally shares when they're not happy. I didn't like conflict, so I tended to hold on to things and try and fix it myself, and I didn't want to hurt and upset anybody else as well, so I would hold on to things. Okay. And I was also very curious. I love to learn about the universe and consciousness and why are we here, and about life. And my favourite subjects from a young age were obviously nature, science, philosophy, psychology, metaphysics, the spiritual world, faiths, beliefs from all around the world. I was interested in belief systems from all around the world, both in the modern day but also years and years ago. I was interested in all those things. I had felt a connection to the East and to some of the sort of healing practices and the energy healing I was interested in. Anything to do with how our bodies are, what makes life, why are we alive, what is energy, a very strong connection to energy, which was interesting because of what came later in my life. Okay, so moving forward to this fateful day, an event happened, and it wasn't just one event, but one, shall we say, one fateful day, something happened, and that was it. It was too much, and it felt like I heard a click. I didn't actually hear a click, but it felt like the snapping of a twig. So there was click, and then what felt like a giant hand reaching to the back of my neck and ripping out my spine, and I fell to the ground. And I could not move. I felt as though I had no energy in my body. I had just flopped to the floor, and that was that. And then I heard something high-pitched in the distance, and I realised, ooh, what's that? It sounded a bit like an animal howling. It sounded like a wolf howling, or an animal in pain screaming and howling, if you were to hear an animal in pain. And I was wondering, what is that? And then I realised it was me. I know. And that was the scene, and it was a good long while before I was able to move. I was just on the floor howling, and I was very, very fortunate that I had loved ones right there to support me, to hold me, and looked after me during that time. And in the time that followed, so the months that followed, I mean, it carried on, of course, beyond that, but in those key weeks, days, weeks, months that followed, this is what I was dealing with. I had a job. I worked full time. I actually somehow, don't know how, went to work each day. I don't know if anybody really truly knew what had happened, could see. Maybe they could see that, Mel isn't smiley like she normally is. Mel looks a bit sad. I'm sure they realised that, but again, nobody really realised what was going on, and just how sad I was, what a state I was in. And other things happened. That day was not the only day, and that was it. In the time that followed, I actually developed agoraphobia. And I'm pulling that face because it's like me, Mel, who loves loves the outdoors, loves nature, loves taking herself off and trekking across countryside. Me, stepping outside became a real issue. I remember sitting on a bus at one point, probably going to work, and realising that my hand was shaking like this, and feeling like my whole body was just really fragile and shaky, and I just wanted to get off the bus and get back to my bedroom and just go to bed. That's how I felt, and it was such a shock because I've never experienced this before. I'm normally feeling in control, and all these things that were happening to me during this time was a feeling of being completely out of control, of being vulnerable. And the second major thing that happened to me that followed that time was also I became very anxious with loud noises. So I especially realised this when fireworks night came, and then after that, then New Year's fireworks night, New Year's night came with the fireworks that go on. And whereas before I'd loved fireworks, I love the universe, I love looking up at the night sky, I love space. So fireworks, since I was a child, I've always loved the colours and the bangs and the colours, and I just would watch the night sky in awe at that from being a young child. So now I actually was in my room, in my living room, and the fireworks were going on outside, the loud bangs, and I couldn't handle it. I was sitting there in the dark, shaking. So as I say, all these things were such a complete shock in themselves. So in addition to the actual the main reasons for the trauma, the things that weren't right for me and needed to change, in addition to that, there was this shock at what was happening to me and my body at that time. So I would often take myself to my bedroom and just sob and cry, and do what I needed to do, just be by myself, and then when I could, I'd come back and rejoin and do what I needed to do. So I need to say now, though, that I made a decision because I was distraught, I felt vulnerable, I felt exposed during all this time. I felt afraid. It's very fearful. I felt very alone, even though I had loved ones around me. In my experience, I felt alone and was scared and was having to work through what is this that's happening right now. And I made a decision, as I said. I started to remember all these things that I have loved since as a child. All these things about, the psychology of who are we, about the mind, about our emotions, how we feel, who are we as humans, everything, all the things like nature that make us feel better, made myself feel better, if I talk about myself, of course. All the things that made me feel better and I was interested in, all the energy healing that I'd read about. I'd read so many things. I hadn't been anywhere much by that time, but I had read so much and learned so much and been so engrossed in all these topics. I made a decision that now, instead of reading about, learning about these things outside, instead of helping everybody else that I could. My job was helping vulnerable people as well. I still did those things, but I had to tell myself that I now need to turn all these things round and help myself. So everything that I had learnt about in terms of people's feelings and emotions and who we are, helping other people, I needed to turn it round, everything that I'd learnt, and help myself. So I don't know if you've heard about the analogy of like the vessel, like if you, in my own words, that if you have a vessel that is full, and if you want to put good things into the vessel, first you will have to empty the vessel of anything you don't need to make space for the new to come in. Well, I felt that I started to feel that that's what was happening to me. So instead of this watershed, like I say, feeling like as it was a devastating thing at the time, but over time I became to feel that it was actually an opportunity to be real, to whereas before I used to say, I used to hide how I'd feel, and I'd put on a brave face and I'd go out there and help other people or do what needs to be done, do all the daily chores, go to work, do all these things. If there was a problem, do what I can to fix it, and then I'd put myself last. And then once that thing, if I felt that I'd moved forward, I'd fixed it or I'd made someone else feel better, then I'd feel better. But I wasn't really, because I was holding on to that pain. Each time I was holding on to that pain. So when this watershed happened, what I started to realise was no more. Now I was physically and emotionally, psychologically, mentally, all these things, unable to hide from it all anymore. So I wasn't okay. No, it wasn't okay. This is how I feel, and I'm not making any excuses anymore. And I told myself, don't tell yourself to stop crying or what have you, which sometimes can be the automatic, pull yourself together, just, you'll be fine. No, I let the tears come out. I let it come out. And I don't know if you've heard of Pandora's box, the story, which is from Greek mythology. My interpretation of it, my knowledge of it, is when Pandora's box was opened, all the blessings for humanity were released, and the only thing that remained was hope. Well, for me, I felt like this event was my Pandora's box, but instead it felt like all the hurt and pain was released, and all that was left was truth. That's how I felt. And over time, as I would allow, go to my room when I needed to and allow the sobbing to just come out, that was weeks, months later, I would keep doing I would keep trying to allow myself to feel how I felt and to let the pain out. And as I did this, like I said before, it did feel like all those masks, more than one, layers, levels of masks were stripped away. And I did wonder, well, who am I? And so with that decision that I made, that I just told you about, one of the things that I noticed when I was crying, like in my bed, crying, or just alone, thinking, feeling, and so on, something amazing started to happen. So in my despair, at one point, the energy of despair and sadness, darkness that was around me, the energy started to change. And I remember the first time noticing that the energy in the room was changing to one of love. It felt, there was a feeling of love in the room. I could sense energy, and it was a positive, loving energy. It was almost as though, I could try and explain, if you imagine that somebody, that they're feeling sad, and somebody who loves you very much, they wrap their arms around you and envelop you, so all body hug, just full of love, they hold you completely and entirely, full of love for you. If you imagine how that feels when you're hugged, to be hugged like that, and then if you imagine that that person now is not there, but the feeling persists, but the feeling is still there, that's how it felt. And of course I'd look around, there's no one there, but I could feel this energy. This is one of the first key things that was a change, because as this kept on happening, I realised, well, I'm not imagining it, because another time it would happen again, and then another time it would happen again. And I started to connect with this whole idea of energy, the whole subject of what is energy, what is emotion, and so on, that I used to wonder about as a child. And I made a decision, which was, instead of receiving and being aware of this energy of love, of comfort, I decided to actually try to create it. So when I was feeling low, I'd be in my room and I'd be feeling low, I would then do this positive affirmation. I would start to tell myself, you are loved, you are good, you are important, you are special, you are valued. And I would start to imagine you are being held in love. And I would just think this to myself, you are being held in love, and imagine that somebody is actually holding me with love in that way. And over time, the more I did that, it started to actually manifest. So that was the very first thing, the very first time that I realised the things that I've read about manifesting. I actually felt that I was doing it, because as I imagined and felt I am loved, so I became loved. And it was like, that's the essence of manifesting. If you want something in your life, first be it, become it. So I wanted to be comforted, and I was. So that was one thing that happened, but it was a key thing, because it was changing the way I looked at the world and at myself. It was showing me that I can actually make a decision about what I do next. I can actually make a change, make a difference. I can actually manifest. And as I became more and more in touch with my feelings and my emotions and so on in this way, I became more, maybe spiritually aware, and I started to start having messages, like visions and messages. I would have lucid dreams where they really felt like I'd experienced something, maybe in another dimension or something. It felt so real, but there was a message attached to it. And this happened quite a lot, that I'd start to have these kind of lucid dreams, but also sort of visions that something would come to me in the daytime as well. If I were feeling, I'd do my meditation, because another thing I would develop with this experience with the emotion of love and being held, I developed that, and I found through that journey ways to help me feel better, become relaxed and in a meditative state to that point, and so on. And that was another journey. And so I found that I could tune in, if you like. I started to tune into energy, to emotions, how we feel. I ended up being able to actually see auras, and I can still do that. Now, I've never I've read about that, obviously. As I said, I've read about all these incredible, wonderful things, but during this time, these things were starting to happen to me. So even now, occasionally, can't do it all the time, but occasionally somebody can be talking to me and I can actually see their aura and the colour of their aura. I can feel how they feel. Okay. So those sorts of things are still persisting to this day. And another thing that would happen is sometimes I'd have a vision, maybe, or a lucid dream. So for example, I'd have a lucid dream and I'd wake up and I would have to paint. And this has happened several occasions. I've had a vision or a lucid dream with some sort of message and a profound feeling. It would leave me with something very profound and deep, and I would feel like I have to paint it. And I have a Facebook page with my, what I call intuitive art, on that page. There's a link below if you want to go and watch this. So that's another story. So all these things happen to me and more, which I will be telling you all about in other videos. But another thing, yet another thing that then happened beyond this again, was I started to remember certain things that I used to be able to do or to feel or that happened to me as a child. So, where I was initially surprised at some of the things that were happening, some of the new abilities that I was getting, there then came a time when I would remember, well, I'm having visions now, but as a child I used to have visions occasionally. Sometimes I could be clairaudient now. As a child, sometimes I could hear or feel messages. And so there was this link that kept happening between what was happening now, who I was realising I was now, and what was happened when I was a child. So, and this was quite profound, because sometimes, I'd remember certain things as a child, but it took a big event now, years and years later, for me to link the two and to realise that that was such an important thing, that was there all along. I would realise that all these things that are happening now, that is who I was all those years ago as a young child, as early as I could remember. And the most important thing, I suppose, was who I am now was linked to who I was as a child, and therefore I remembered who I am. So, I'm Mel from EnRichmbs. Thank you for following and joining me on this journey. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Please do comment below if there is any particular subject that you would like me to record next and tell you more about next. In the meantime, thank you for joining me. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.